Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm Lulu Arias, the Director of Customer Success here at Xendee, and I'm very happy to be co-hosting this webinar with Ray Guerrero, our Principal Engineer. This is our agenda for today. We will start with some introductions. After that, I'll tell you a little bit about Xendee and the products that we offer. Then I'll pass it over to Ray to speak about Xendee's API and how the Discover tool is built on that API. And after that, I will do a demo showcasing 2 use cases using Discover. We will close our time together with some Q&A. There's a button you can click to submit your questions. We will take time at the end to reply to most of them. As I mentioned earlier, I'm Lulu Arias, the Director of Customer Success here at Xendee. Before joining Xendee, I used to work as a consultant at the Boston Consulting Group, leading different projects, but mainly focused on mining and oil and gas. And that's one of the main reasons why I decided to join Xendee, because I wanted to transition into green energy and create some positive impact in the world. I joined Xendee almost 2 years ago, and ever since then, I've been working closely with customers, helping them model their microgrids and EV infrastructure. Ray, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thanks, Lulu. So I'm Ray. I'm part of the engineering team. I'm working on the modeling on the backend side, making sure that we develop the models for new technologies and features. I also part of the consultancy team, working with Xendee clients to help them model their microgrids and DERs. I'm also the point person for any academic accounts for universities or research institutions. Previously, I'm part of the research, design, and deployment team in SunPower Maxion. I was one of the leading engineers as well if a social enterprise deploying energy microgrids across remote areas. And I was also an affiliate in Berkeley Labs working on multi-period investments. And now, I'm in Xendee now, and I'm happy to share with you one of our features.
Thank you, Ray. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Xendee, we're a software company that helps organizations optimize their microgrids and EV infrastructure. We offer 4 different tools that accompany you through the whole process. So from the discovery into the proposal, all the way into the detailed engineering design and the operation of the site. So let's say there's different sites that you need to decarbonize and need to define where to start. Or there's a single site, but multiple technology configurations that you want to test out. Then you can use our Discover tool, which basically automates the run of those sites and provides a rank order list that tells you where to start. You can order that list based on ROI, CO2, and other variables. We will see that in a little more detail in just a bit, but I also wanted to talk about the other solutions that we offer so that you have the full overview of what you can do with Xendee. So once you prioritize your sites and you know where to start, you probably need to create a proposal, and maybe the salesperson in charge doesn't have a lot of technical expertise outside of his or her product, or maybe you don't want to spend all of that time and resources on a site that still hasn't been contracted. Then you can use Propose, which is our catalog-driven tool that will quickly and accurately create feasibility studies and proposals that you can then share with prospects. Once the proposal is run, you might want to go into some more detail, and then it's where you can use design to run multi-year analysis, to model for outages, to work with time series with 15-minute interval data, and so much more. And well, the good thing about the tools is that you can kind of combine them. So the projects that are run in Discover can then be opened up in design and analyzed in more detail. We will also see that when we do the demo. But finally, once the site is operational, you might want to continue to work with a tool that's similar to the ones used before. In that case, Operate uses the same algorithms as our other tools, but also incorporates real-time data to ensure that the runtime of your operation is constantly being optimized. So today, as you know, we will be focusing on Discover. But before jumping in, I'd like for Ray to give us an overview of what the API can do and how Discover is built on top of that API. Ray, I pass it over to you.
Next slide. Thank you. So as we talk on like different clients and users, we saw that you or your clients would actually need to generate multiple configurations, site studies in a short span of time for reviewing and comparing projects at scale. So it could be that you are looking into like different store branches, warehouses, or data centers, like hundreds of them across different cities or location. And you wanted to understand or pick one or two or three low-hanging fruits that you want to start your project on. And that would require a lot of projects to be created. You might also want to explore like distribution nodes, how you want to put in DERs to reduce overall the carbon footprint. You might, or your clients might also be looking into how a policy will impact a combination of DER investments across different locations. So with these case studies, you'll need to really go through and try to implement each site, each combination at a time. So you could imagine the extensive analysis that's required. So if you go to the next slide, the typical workflow would be for you to go through our website and then create a project one by one in our design tool. So in the API-enabled alternative, you will have the capability to directly communicate with the Xendee backend to create this project for you. So this means that you could automate the project creation by a simple software or script, and following our API rules and protocols, you can create this project automatically. This means that if you have, like, say, an existing database, like a list of the projects and some of the details, you could create a script to automatically read them and then pass it on to the Xendee backend to create the project for you. So you could imagine like hundreds or even thousands of sites you could analyze rather quickly using just automation. And with that project already in the Xendee backend, that means that you could open it in this design project if you want to have more detailed analysis. Right. So I'll give you an example of what the script would look like. So for example, the next slide, with the API, you just need to, we'll specify or give you the endpoints for the API, and you'll just have to send like JSON payloads. For example, for this case, what if you want to create a project? You'll just need this JSON payload, simple text format. Just simply go through the details that we would normally do in the design project wizard, where we define the name of the project, the folder name, if it is grid connected or not, any metrics you want to use as default, all the financial assumptions that you have, your project location, and as well as which technologies you'd like to consider. So if you could imagine all of these, you could simply create a project right away for you. Another simple case as well for this is, what if you have common steps or default steps when you try to create your own project? So this could be like default settings for your company that are not the defaults that we have in Xendee. So you could create a simple script so that every time you open a project, you will have your own defaults and not rely on the defaults that we have in Xendee, which again could be different from your company. And you don't have to go to manually creating those projects and defaults for you. So with this script, you could automatically create those defaults for yourselves. Right. And we created the API, keeping in mind that there are important features in design that are commonly used in these projects. So with this, showing that in this table, the features in design that are currently available in the API. So for sure, you could create grid-connected or islanded microgrids, and you could also relocate a project using the API. You could upload your own load data, as well as building load and EV demands. And looking at the different technologies, we see that most often customers use solar PV, battery, generators, whether it's diesel, natural gas, or fuel cell. We also saw EV chargers and wind turbines more common in these ones. The other technologies, they're not yet available, but we could always discuss your needs, and we'll see how we could implement that in the API. And then apart from those technologies, other considerations and features available in design are of course available in API, specifically the tariffs, where you could easily use your Genability account to get your tariffs for you. And of course, since we have generators, we'll have the option to edit these fuel prices for you, outages, financing, as well as the tax credits, whether it's investment or production-based credits. And most often in these optimizations, these are single-year optimizations, and we could even go to the more detailed time series optimizations. Again, if there are some optimizations that require more on your end with all these extensive analysis, we could discuss and let's see how we could implement in the API. Typically, the approach for our customers would be they would create these projects in the API, and then out of, let's say, hundreds, they are able to pick 5 sites that that are promising based on the initial analysis. Based on those 5 or those 1 or 2, you would go into design to create a more detailed analysis and where you could implement more of these optimizations. And with this API, we're able to actually build on Discover. So Discover uses the API, and you could think of it as actually a demonstration of how the API would work. And yeah, in the next slides or the next minutes or so, Lulu will demonstrate how Discover works.
Thank you, Ray, for that overview. It was really helpful. And now, without further ado, let's dive into Discover. So if you want to work with Discover, you'll go to your Xendee account, then under Projects, Discover, you'll be able to create a new project. So let's run a new analysis here. It will ask you to pick a name. In this case, we will call it Webinar Multiple Sites 1. I forgot to mention, we're gonna look at 2 different use cases. We will start analyzing one same technology mix in several different sites, and then we will work with one single site with multiple technology configurations. So after you name your project, it will ask you to choose a zip file. I'll go ahead and import this, and while Xendee does the analysis, I'll explain what are these inputs that we're looking into. So basically, the zip file consists of a number of CSV files where you need to specify the information for Xendee to do the runs. So let's start with this one, which is sites. So here you see there's 1 line per each site. In this case, we chose to work with 7, but Discover and the API have the ability to run hundreds and even thousands of sites at once. For each one, you'll have a line. So on this first file, you need to enter the address information as well as other location data for each of the sites. After that, you have the tariff one, where you basically inform us of the tariff ID. As you might know, Xendee is integrated with Genability, so that is the only thing we need, and Xendee will automatically import all of the information using the Genability tool. Next up is the load. And in this case, instead of lines, each column would represent a site. And here you have the 8760 for the load shape of each one of the sites. Then the setup is pretty straightforward. Basically asks the number of sites that you're working on and the resolution. In this case, we have 1 hour interval data. And finally, we have the optimization mapping. In this case, it's pretty simple given that we decided to work with the same configuration for each site. So the only thing that actually changes here is the load type, which you need to indicate. And the important thing here is that for each technology that we decide to work with, in this case, generator, solar PV, and a battery, we need to create a CSV file with all the technical and economic specifications. So if we close this here, you'll see the 3 additional files, which are 1 per technology. If we open this up, you'll see it's pretty similar to what you have in Discover in terms of the information required. And there's also these notes and remarks to help and guide you through the process. in the case of the generator, for instance, in this case, we're working with a diesel generator, but you can also choose different types of generations. That's what we'll do in the next use case. And Solar PV is pretty similar regarding the inputs required. Once you kind of completed all of this, you convert it to a zip file and it's ready for upload. What we spoke, Xendee already did the runs, so let's kind of view the results here. The first thing you'll see is this map with the different sites color-coded. So the green ones are the ones with the higher priority, the red ones, the ones with the least priority. In this case, they are ordered by energy cost, but you also have this drop-down menu where you can choose which parameter to choose in order to do the prioritization. And if you scroll down, you also have this table here with the same like economic parameters and also like CO2, if that's something that you're interested in using to do the prioritization. In this case, let's work with, let's say, MPV. You could also do it with IRR, CO2, as I mentioned earlier. And in this case, Xendee is telling us to prioritize site 1 based on our minimum cost optimization. If you go to the right side, you will see the different technology mixes. And as we set the technologies in consider, the different sites have different configurations. In the first case, which is the one we'll analyze, we're working with a PV, generator, as well as battery. I'm guessing it's because of the location and specifically because of the tariff and the different rates at different times of the year. Of the day, that Xendee used to work with battery in this case and maybe not in others. But if you want to go into more detail to better understand this result, you can click a view report here, and it will take you to the reporting, which is pretty similar to the one in Discover. So I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I just want to walk you through 2 of our tabs. One is the financial data one, where you'll get details regarding the cost breakdown, ROI, different charts, and a full cash flow. And the other one that's quite interesting is the dispatch by end use, where you'll see how the load is met at each hour of each day. As we assumed, Xendee decided to work with different technology mixes to make sure it takes advantages of the different rates of the utility, charging the battery, discharging it when it's more expensive to import from the grid. If you want more detail on this, you could analyze these with 15-minute interval data, or again, do multi-year analysis, outages. To do that, you simply click this button here, create new design project. And what Xendee does is convert your Discover project into one in design, where you can go in and play around to get more details on your project. Having said that, I'd like to move to the next use case. So once again, we go to Projects, Discover. We run a new analysis here. In this case, we will call it webinar, let's say multiple technologies, number 1. And we choose the other zip file, which we'll explore in just a minute. So we'll do this, start running. I'll go quicker this time because you're already familiar with how this works. But basically, when you're working with a single site, the first files are pretty simple. Let's open up one to see what I'm referring to. For each site, you'll have the same location. Same thing happens with the tariff, with the load, and with the setup. But when this becomes interesting is in the optimization mapping. So here you can see how in the different runs, we choose to work with different technologies. In this case, we're working with a diesel generator, then with a natural gas generator, finally with a fuel cell. And this, at the bottom here, we're playing around with either considering the technology or forcing the technology. And what's important here is that for each configuration, for each technology that you name here, you need a zip file. So in this case, we'll have more CSV files. Again, for the generator, there's specific cells where you can input the type of fuel, the type of generator, and that's what we played around here with. So let's go see how the results look like. In this case, as you can see, there's no map because we're working with a single site, but you still have, of course, the table so that you can play around with the prioritization. Let's say we, again, work with the MPV, we're doing a minimum cost optimization, so we're focusing on the economic side first. We see how sites 2 and 5, which were the ones that had natural gas generator, are the ones that are prioritized, followed by the ones with diesel generator, and finally, the ones with fuel cell. But let's say that we want to look into emissions. So let's rank order these based on, I lost it here. Sorry. Let's view the results once again. And I want to order it based on CO2 here, emission reduction. So once we do this, we see how that changes, and the sites where we worked with the fuel cell go to the top. Again, if you're interested in looking into this in some more detail, we can look into the report, we can convert this to a design and continue to work with that. So this was just a short demo, but I hope it was helpful to show how you can model several different sites automatically, prioritize them so that you're able to spend your time and resources on those that are most important based on your criteria. And then another thing that Ray mentioned that I want to highlight again is how this is a starting point. But the API has a lot more capabilities. So if this is something that you're interested in, I highly encourage you to reach out to us. We can set up a call, discuss your needs, and see how we can build on the API to meet those needs. We have the chat down here, so I think we'll move on to ask some Q&A questions. Again, if you're interested in this, you can either email Ray or myself, or get into Xendee.com and request a demo, and we'll get back to you soon. Ray, do we have any questions in the chat that we need to address?
Yeah, so let's move to the Q&A. So the first question here, question is, could we API or use API for our own data instead of genability for tariff and load data? So the answer is yes. I mentioned that you could use your own genability ID. You could also define your own rates, especially like time of use rates. You could use those. So you could even just simplify it, making a blended energy rate, or define those rates for different seasons or different time of use. Currently, there's no split charges or real-time pricing, but again, we could discuss if this is something that you'll need. In terms of load data, yes, you could define, well, you actually need to define your own load data with the API. And one example was that with Discover, as Lulu showed. One option with Discover is to show or to put it in a CSV file, and you could use your software or script to read those load data to make the project or define the project. All right, so next question from Max. Is there a way to have select system start or stop at hourly times? So the API works by actually creating a design project. So whatever features that are available in design are the ones that could use, in general, use with the API. So I'm not entirely sure what we mean by system start or stop. But if this means the dispatch, then this means that we could do it in design based on the different parameters that you set in the technology. So it could be that you define the max or mean annual hours of your generator, or mean up or down time. Okay, let me know if that answered your question, but feel free to also send those in through email. Okay, let me go through the other questions.
In the meantime, this is Michael Stadler from Xendee. I just want to point out something here, because I think, Lulu, you said we can move the projects into Discover, but I think we moved the projects from Discover to Design. So I think you mixed up the words here. So I just want to make sure that people understand that we go from Discover into Design, and that Discover is really a script which uses the API. And as we said early on, it's a use case that you can use as a starting point, but it's really designed to do a lot of scenarios, and then you can do more detailed analysis later on in Design, as Lulu was showing you. Just pointing that out.
Thanks, Michael. Sorry I messed that up. Yes, of course. So once you get the prioritization in Discover, you can go into the reporting and then convert it into Design, where you can continue to work on it to get more detailed analysis. Thanks.
I got two other questions related to generability and tariff, so I think that's answered already. The other question is instead of an address, would it be possible to hand over a geocoordinate in form of latitude and longitude in the CSV? So in the API, actually we use the latitude and longitude. Right now in Discover, we only use the address, but again, we could discuss this one, and depending on your use case, we could easily implement that we use the latitude and longitude. In Discover script, we just use like Google API so that we could get from the address to the latitude and longitude that we actually use in the API for the backend creation of your project.
Are there any more questions, Ray?
No, I think that's it. Anything else?
Michael Stadler from Xendee again. Just to point out, since Ray mentioned at the beginning that not all the features are available in the API, and it's actually because, as Ray said, the features that were requested were made available through the API. So it's not the technical challenge or something like this. It's just if you request that you would like half the different features, we can make this available through the JSON API, which directly communicates with the backend, which you know from the design, maybe also from Propose here.
Great, perfect. So we're right about to hit 9:50 for East Coasters, 12:30 for myself. I think we can close up. Thanking you all for joining, reminding you once again that you can reach out to us anytime or schedule a demo using the xendee.com webpage. We'll also send you over a recording of this session. Yeah, and thank you so much for joining. See you next time.